Welcome to Meet the Candidate with your host, Sulani Madsen. Meet the Candidate is your opportunity to see local candidates and hear about the experiences that have shaped their lives. Meet the Candidate is a nonpartisan community project brought to you by our friends at Greater Spokane Incorporated, Ponderosa Republican Women's Club, We Believe, We Vote, and Better Spokane. Now, here's Sulani.
Okay, well, welcome to Meet the Candidate, and my guest for this session is Mary Dye, who is running for the 9th Legislative District, Position 1, for re-election. Welcome, Mary.
Thanks for having me, Sulani.
Glad that you could come up to the studio today. And
my pleasure.
And we could have a little chat and talk a little bit about where did you grow up and go to school.
Well, I grew up in Southeast Idaho. My dad was a forester, and I went to school at South Fremont High. Then I put myself through college at University of Idaho, in-state. Obviously,
in-state tuition counts.
That's right, and I got a degree in agriculture there. I'm very glad I did, and went to the Peace Corps shortly thereafter.
Where did you serve?
I served in Thailand, and I served as an agricultural volunteer in a non-formal education, which is a university for people who are learning to read and write. And so we worked on agricultural technology and reading and writing.
That sounds exciting. You were there for a year?
I was there 2 years.
2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I did some water and sewer projects in villages, but mostly just learned a lot of, it was a good growing up time too.
Yeah. Well, I know you came back and I know you're currently farming down in Garfield County. How did you get connected to agriculture on the land?
Well, one of my classmates started a company that was introducing canola into the production system, and I had worked in the canola and pea lab for the entire time, putting myself through college,
Mm-hmm.
and so he hired me on as his staff agronomist, and I met hundreds of farmers and worked on getting canola into production with the equipment that we had.
Okay, but that didn't get you an actual farm of your own.
Right, it did not. And one of those farmers and I started dating, Roger Dye, and he was so kind as to take me under his wing. And we've been farming together for 30 years and have 3 children, all grown. They're at university right now. I have one at George Washington. My second just enlisted in the Army and hopes to learn to fly. She's in the reserves, and so she'll go to community college next year at Big Bend and take their aviation course. My third child is going to New St. Andrews in Moscow, Idaho.
Oh, cool. Sounds exciting. At least you have one who's close to home.
I do, none of whom are really thinking about returning to the farm, but maybe things will change.
That could change. You never know.
Yep, they're young.
Well, one of the questions I like to ask people is about early work experience. As a kid, did you have any jobs that helped you first connect that effort and work?
I definitely did. I worked in the potato fields.
Oh.
In Idaho, they shut school down for potato harvest. And that was my favorite time of year, and I absolutely love the smell of diesel and dirt in the morning. It's the best smell in the world, right? And so I knew from an early age that farming was my thing, and I grew a very large vegetable garden, competed in the county and the state fair, won a lot of stuff with my vegetable garden, and I don't know, just me and dirt. It's a happy place, and so I knew I needed to study agriculture. I started in agricultural economics and didn't really fit well in that. Very confused by Keynesian economics, didn't make sense to me, and so I dropped it regrettably and went to plant science, crop management. I would really love to revisit that, even at my age, to go back and do an economics degree.
Some things make more sense after you've gained some maturity. I think that when we press kids into
I agree.
college too early, it can be a problem.
I do. And, public school didn't give you a lot of background on what economics really did and how it worked. I think that's something that we need to do, financial literacy and economics, with our students more so they understand how the machine works, right? And I think there's a lot of confusion in the body politics about our economy and the forces that make it successful.
Your kids went to school in Garfield School District?
They didn't. We've had a very diverse schooling. We started in public school and then had some difficulty with that, and so we ended up doing a little bit of homeschool, and then we went to private school, private Christian school in the Valley, and I did a lot of driving. And then ultimately they didn't want to leave the private school system, and so we flew them to high school in Moscow, Idaho. And 2 of the 3 graduated there. It was a pretty rigorous course, and so my middle child decided she wanted to try and finish at public school, so she graduated this year from Pomeroy High School.
Okay. Well, that gives you a lot of different experience with the education system.
I have a very broad experience with it, and I have just a lot of so many different ways of approaching education. I just don't think one size fits all at all for our kids. And giving families options. Certainly technology is changing the way we become educated.
It's added lots more options.
And so that's why I focus so much on getting access to broadband in rural communities so that kids have options. My daughter had to pick up a lot of extra coursework because of the private schooling, not fitting in with the credits that were required. And so she had to do a bunch of that on the online. And you know what? We just don't have good enough internet service in the farm to be able to do an online course adequately. And so we ended up having to do a lot in town at the library and at the school. And, I just think that getting access to technology is going to be critical for the next generation, but also our rural communities. Our rural communities need to have that to restart their little brick and mortar main streets. We just aren't participating in the global marketplace when we cannot get access to high-speed internet.
So besides that kind of an issue, what prompted you to first run for the legislature?
Well, I come from an agricultural background. I've always been active in the party, but I've also been involved in policy making at the federal level for agriculture. So helping write the 1995 Farm Bill, Freedom to Farm, that was my brainchild, and we were successful in getting that. It was a glide path away from direct subsidy, and we currently now are simply a baseline insurance. I call it FDIC for farming. And then, working that through my entire adult life pretty much, worked with the Romneys on writing their farm and energy policies for their election, and we couldn't pull it over the top to a finish line, but even Obama picked up that all of the above energy policy that we wrote in that document for the Romneys. So I continue to be engaged at the policy level, and when the opening came up, farmers reached out to me to try and take that opportunity for them. And we have very few farmers left in the legislature.
Active farmers, yeah.
And so it's good that we keep that agricultural voice in the legislature. We bring an entirely different perspective because we're family-owned farms, but we deal in the global marketplace, right? And so we deal with everything from the nuts and bolts of farming all the way up to international trade.
Well, that kind of all leads up into answering the last question I give every candidate with the last minute, which is to describe how you see the duties of this office and why should voters choose you to be their state representative.
This office is very creative and entrepreneurial, and I come to my entire farming background the same way. I've always been an entrepreneur, and seeing those opportunities to bring value added into our district, whether it's to get access to additional irrigation water to remedy the 22 municipalities in my district that are losing their municipal water supplies. It's bringing broadband to rural communities that have been left behind in the global marketplace. It's being able to fix some of the regulations for the oil trains so that we can keep our small railroads that are supplying our upcountry businesses transportation to the global market, keeping that going. So it's just so many opportunities to help and provide good and value for the hardworking people in my district.
Okay, well, that sounds like a good pitch, and thank you for coming in, Mary. Good luck on your campaign.
Thank you so much, Sulani.
Thanks for watching Meet the Candidate. Spokane Talks thanks our community-minded partners, Greater Spokane Incorporated, the Ponderosa Republican Women's Club, We Believe We Vote, and Better Spokane for helping make Meet the Candidate possible.